Hello and welcome to the final instalment of the Starter Habitat collection for Planet Zoo Console Edition. Over the last 4 months, I've worked my way through all of the base game animals in console and I've created a starter habitat for them all. We started in Europe last March and finally made our way into Africa over the last couple of weeks. Today I'm showcasing the final set completed for the collection for the African tropical animals. Starting our showcase today is the Aldabra tortoise. You may recognise this one, the Aldabra tortoise and the Galapagos giant tortoise. Even though they're an ocean apart, they have very similar needs, so only minor adjustments needed on this one to make this habitat appropriate for the Aldabra. As with the Galapagos, I've made sure this habitat is big enough to accommodate a hefty number of juveniles, since the tortoises are very enthusiastic when it comes to breeding. You can hold 4 adults in here and upwards of 100 juveniles at any one time. Any more than that, I'd recommend birth control to avoid overpopulation. Next is a combined habitat for all species of lemurs, so black and white lemur, red ruff lemur and the ring-tailed lemur. All lemurs come from Madagascar, so their habitat requirements are identical. That's why this is a combined habitat. It makes sense to have them sharing this space. In terms of space, you can hold around 100 lemurs in here, so plenty of space to mix and match the 3 species, at least 15 of each, and still have room for juveniles. Next up is the bongo. Bongo is a shy and reclusive animal apparently, so I've got a one-way glass barrier at the front here to prevent the bongos getting stressed. A change from the typical style I've adopted for the starter habitats here, there's very little plaster wall pieces for this one. Gone with the natural wood look to give this more of a tropical ambience. Bongos like the coverage, probably to keep out of guest line of sight. You can fit a full set of bongos in this habitat, so 5 adults and up to 4 juveniles. They really don't need much space. Next is the bonobo. The bonobo's preferred habitat is very similar to that of the Bornean orangutan. So for this enclosure, I've used the orangutan's starter habitat as a shell. Just a few tweaks with the plants and climbing frames and this one was ready to go. In terms of space, there's enough room for a full set, so 10 adults and up to 7 juveniles. Next up, it's the mandrill. Fun fact, mandrill was the first animal I ever built a habitat for in Planet Zoo way back in 2019. Happy to say my building skills have certainly improved since then, after producing so many starter habitats, particularly in terms of the apes. By this point, I've been starting to feel a little bit of fatigue with them because all of the apes in Planet Zoo have such similar requirements for the habitats. It's difficult to make them unique. I have changed it up a little for this one and have a central outdoor space with the hard shelter building wrapping around the habitat. Works well and the mandrills seem to like it. Size-wise, it's another full house here. You can keep the maximum number of mandrills in this enclosure, so up to 10 adults and 9 juveniles. Next is the Nile monitor. Nile monitor is a strange one. Like the crocs and the gharial, they have a hard time getting over anything that isn't almost entirely flat. As in rocks and plants, that really eats into the navigable area for them. Nile monitors are also fussy about their plants, so you can't put in a lot of plants here, unfortunately. I think if I was playing the console version with DLCs, it would be great to build up this habitat with the faux rocks that come with the aquatic pack. Also, I believe there is a set of small faux rocks that comes with the base game, but alas, they're not counted as Planet Zoo theme, so I can't add them to the starter habitats without the blueprint showing up as locked. I'm restricted to Planet Zoo theme pieces only so that there's no locking when you download them from the workshop. Hey ho, I did take on this challenge, and just challenge it certainly has been sometimes. Space-wise, I've accounted here for the monitor's breeding pattern. They produce a lot of offspring, so lots of room in this habitat for that. You can hold 3 adults and up to 21 juveniles, so it should be enough for 1 or 2 rounds of breeding before there's a space issue. Next is the Enyala. Almost identical to the bongo here, even down to their relationship with humans, so I've used the bongo habitat as a shell for this one. There is more variety in the plants, as Enyala can tolerate grassland plants as well as tropical. Everything else is almost the same. For breeding, you can get a full set of Enyala in here, so 5 adults and 4 juveniles at any one time. Next is the okapi. Okapi is also a shy animal and favours a lot of plant coverage. They need a lot more room than the bongo or Enyala though, so this is a much larger habitat to accommodate for that. In terms of numbers, for okapi you can only keep 2 adults together at a time and they'll only ever produce 1 offspring per birth, so this habitat is plenty big enough for all 3 of those. Next is the western chimpanzee. This is pretty much the same habitat I created for the mandrill, even the same plants I think. The apes really are incredibly similar in the game for their requirements. It can be boring creating habitats for them because of that, but then again it's also super easy. For this one, there is a slight variation in the terrain requirements though. I think the chimpanzees favour soil over rock, or the other way around, so there is a variation in the terrain paint. For size, you can squeeze around 14 adults and 7 juveniles in here. Next habitat, yet another ape, it's the western lowland gorilla. Luckily, I spotted an error with this habitat after I'd uploaded it to the workshop. The back fence didn't register in the blueprint at first, so if anyone has already downloaded this one before I spotted that, apologies about that. It's fixed now, so you won't be having gorillas escaping all over you zoo. Good to mention actually, there is occasionally errors with the uploads I do for the starter habitats. I'm only human and I do miss things on occasion. However, as always, feel free to leave a comment here if there is anything you've spotted with any of the starter habitats, any issues you've noticed, and I'll endeavour to fix anything that comes up. Aside from that, that's everything done now in terms of the starter habitats for Planet Zoo console. I am considering uploading a full zoo to the workshop with all of the starter habitats in there, but whether the complexity meter can handle that or not is another story. I will try it and keep you posted on whether it works or not. I do hope you've enjoyed the series and are finding the starter habitats useful. Since I've made a full set for the PC version of the game, I did feel a sense of obligation to add a set for the console version too. Feels good to have completed it. With the starter habitats out of the way, we'll be moving on to other things in the console version shortly. So until next time, thanks for watching, I'll catch you in the next video.